Water distribution event is being held in Harper Woods today after elevated levels of lead were found in the tap water.
This comes after elevated lead levels were found earlier this week in Redford Township. And of course, with the Flint water crisis still fresh on everyone's mind.
Yeah, big concern for a lot of the residents there. So joining us now with what you need to know is Wayne County Health Director Abdul El Said. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's get started with exactly what they found. This was basically the result of a routine check, right? How bad is this?
Yeah, so based on the Safe Drinking Water Act, places where there are known lead surface lines, so that's the line leading to the house, if those are made out of lead, they test 30 homes. And if the upper 10th percentile of lead levels in those 30 homes is greater than 15 parts per billion, then what we call that as a lead exceedance. And in that circumstance, the community is notified about that, and we'll come in, we'll partner with the local community, we'll work together to make sure that folks have the information that they need, and that we're distributing lead filtration. And when people hear lead, I know that's a really scary thing. What I want folks to understand, it's not that every home in these communities is affected, but the folks we're particularly focused on are folks where there are homes, who live in homes where there are lead surface lines, or if there is old fixtures in the home that may have lead or copper in them. And we're offering filter distribution, particularly to families where there is a child who lives in the home or a pregnant person who lives in the home, and folks who are Medicaid eligible, and then also if there is, of course, lead surface line or lead fixtures. But we also recommend folks who are concerned, particularly if they have children, we're also offering testing and consultation about how to protect yourself and your loved ones.
And that's free to the resident?
Yeah, so for the lead filters, those are free for folks who are Medicaid eligible. But for anyone else who's concerned, they can come and they can get tested and have a consultation with our teammates.
Understandably, this leads to a lot of concern for some people and sometimes panic in some cases. Are there things that people should be looking out for specifically as far as their health is concerned?
So when we talk about lead, the folks that we're most concerned about are children, right? If you or I were to be exposed to lead, it might make us feel a little bit ill, but it wouldn't have disastrous consequences for us. Our bodies would clear it. But the reason we're so worried about children is because lead is very similar to calcium. And so what happens is in a growing body, a bone will take up lead instead of calcium, and then it'll continue to leach. And the other place where calcium is really important is in a developing brain. And so the long-term consequences of lead exposure can be cognitive delay and other circumstances like that. And that's really what we're trying to avoid. So the most important thing to remember is that young children in particular, all the way up to the age of 6, should be regularly tested for lead. They can have that done at a pediatrician's office, or they can come to our offices in the city of Wayne, in Wayne County, at 33030 Van Born Avenue. And get tested there. And so what we really want to make sure is that folks are thinking about this potential risk. The other thing I want folks to understand is obviously after the Flint water crisis, when we think about lead, we think about water. But the most common way that people are exposed to lead isn't in water. It's actually in paint. And so if you live in a home built before 1978, before they made lead-based paint illegal, it's plausible that you have lead in your walls. And the unfortunate thing about lead is it's actually sweet to the taste. And so a small child will see a paint chip, they'll put it in their mouth, it tastes sweet, and then they go and have another one, and that's really the biggest danger. So it's important, even if you're not somebody who lives in a community, whether it's Redford Township or Harper Woods, when you have young children in a home, especially in an older home, make sure that there aren't paint chips, make sure that those windowsills also in particular are dust-free, and then make sure to get the young ones tested.
And would painting over that old paint, does that do enough to keep it out of reach?
It can over time, but if you have a place where there has been disrepair, even painting over, it's not going to really fix the chipping.
Sure.
And so there's a whole mitigation process that has to be done to protect those walls from being able to chip.
All right, and then finally, just quickly, I know you mentioned it's mostly paint, but with water, if people are worried and they have one of those service lines, should they be avoiding showering or using this water to wash their hands?
So here's the thing I'll tell you. The most important thing is if you live in a community or if you live in a home that's serviced by a lead service line, you want to make sure, particularly if you're a pregnant person or a child, that tap water is run through a water filter. Okay. And that's why we're offering filter distributions. When it comes to washing hands or even showering, that's not really the worry. It really is drinking water. And so that's why we recommend that if you're in a home that's serviced by a lead service line or you potentially have lead containing fixtures, that you're running your water through a filter, and that's why we're distributing them to folks who meet certain eligibility requirements both in Redford Township and in Harper Woods.
All right, very helpful. This is Wayne County Health Director, Dr. Abdul El Sayed. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.